On Wednesday, the Bank of Canada is expected to once again hike up interest rates, with some analysts expecting an increase of another 75 basis points. Now, that would bring the bank's benchmark rate to 4%, all part of the bank's strategy to discourage spending and thereby bring down inflation. But is the bank targeting the right cause of inflationary pressure? Well, the federal NDP leader does not think so. Jagmeet Singh writing to the Prime Minister and saying the bank needs to ease up on its interest rate hikes. Well, with more, we are now joined by Francesco Sorbara, the Liberal MP for the riding of Vaughan Woodbridge in Ontario, also the Conservative finance critic, Jasraj Hallan, who is also the MP for the riding of Calgary Forest Lawn in Alberta, and NDP environment critic Laurel Collins, the MP for Victoria, of course, in British Columbia. Hello to the three of you.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for having us.
So, Ms. Collins, I'm going to ask you to start us off. What point is your leader trying to make with this letter?
Well, I think we know that there are many causes to inflation, but one of the causes that the government has been ignoring is corporate greed. And our party has been pushing the government to take action. You know, Canadians right now are struggling. They're having to make really difficult choices because the cost of groceries, the cost of food has been going up and up and up. And when Canadians are struggling this way, and when they look and they see CEOs making millions of dollars each year, when they see corporate profits, reaching record highs, they expect their government to take action. And so we not only want the government to be investigating to ensure that we hold these corporations accountable, but also it would be good to see the government take on corporate greed in a real way, implement a excess profits tax, a windfall profits tax, so that we can reinvest that money in supporting Canadians who are struggling right now.
But he's also making the point for the Bank of Canada to ease up on its interest rates, is he not?
Yeah, I think at a time when Canadians are seeing interest rates go up, many Canadians hold debt right now. The answer to rising inflation is not to make the people who are struggling to have increased costs. We want to make sure that we actually support the people who need it most right now and hold the ultra-rich, the people at the very, very top, accountable and make sure that they pay what they owe. And it's another reason why we've been calling for the government to close the tax loopholes. We know that according to the parliamentary budget officer, the government lost $25 billion because there are loopholes in our tax system, and it means that corporations and wealthy CEOs are getting away with billions of our taxpayer dollars.
Okay, let me jump in and bring in Mr. Sorbara there, because I would imagine there are Canadians who hear the points that Ms. Collins is making and nodding in agreement. So what's your response to all of that?
Thank you, Michael, for the question, and to my NDP colleague, and the CPC as well. Look, we know Canadians at this time are feeling the squeeze from inflation, which we know is a global phenomenon. And we know we need to put in place, and we have put in place, targeted investments to help Canadians. We know we're going to be doubling the GST rebate over the next 6 months, and the Canadians will receive that before the end of the year. The rental benefit, $500 to nearly 2 million Canadians to assist them. We'll put in place the top-up or the 10% increase to the seniors' old age security, benefiting over nearly 4 million seniors across the country, almost $800 a year. So our approach is very, very, very straightforward. Let's do targeted investment, help those Canadians that have been impacted by the global phenomena of inflation. Appropriate fiscal policy, maintaining Canada's strong fiscal framework. At the same time, making sure there's no such thing as what I call crony capitalism taking place. That giving the tools to the Competition Bureau so they can investigate if there is collusion, if there is anything going on that we need to take action on. Absolutely. In terms of, I know the NDP has commented on this about increasing taxes. Look, the first thing we did when we entered government in 2015 is we asked the super wealthy or the wealthiest Canadians to pay a little bit more. And we did so, and we gave a tax cut to middle-class Canadians. Again, this time around, we put in a higher corporate tax rate for several corporations, which will raise billions of dollars to assist Canadians that are in need. We're doing that. We don't want to politicize the Bank of Canada. That's the wrong thing to do. That is an irresponsible thing to do, and we will not do that. We have fiscal policy, which is within our control. We'll continue acting. We'll continue acting prudently.
Okay, Mr. Hallan, what do you make of all of that?
Well, thank you for having me on the show, and it's clear to see that both the Liberals and the NDP, this costly coalition, both don't think about monetary policy. This is the same government that has caused us to be in this position in the first place. This overspending, leave it in the ground government and this costly coalition has continually attacked Canadians. We see a symptom of a bigger problem today. The symptoms are gas inflation, food inflation. We see housing inflation, rent inflation. And what's the cause of it? Just inflation. That's the actual cause of it. The government has continued to borrow on the backs of Canadians without having any type of fiscal plan to get us our books back in order. And today we see what has happened. It's easy to say that this is a global phenomenon, and that's easy to take that away. But if you don't want to take it from the Conservatives, you don't have to look any further than the Bank of Canada governor, who says that inflation is homegrown. And let's take that one step further. The former Bank of Canada governor, someone that could be Mr. Sorbara's future boss, Mark Carney, has also said this is a domestic issue. The problem is government greed. And it's too bad that the costly coalition continually attacks Canadians. We put forward a motion today to help Canadians lower the cost of their home heating. We've seen home heating going up between 50 and 100%. It's going to go up. And instead of helping Canadians, this costly NDP Liberal coalition voted against it, not wanting to help the people in Atlantic Canada. Even though the Liberal Premier has called on this, the Liberal Premier from Newfoundland and Labrador has asked for this, and the Conservatives stood up for their constituents. The Liberal government has not.
So all these policies, suggestions aside and initiatives aside, I do want to get to a point that Mr. Sorbara addressed a little bit, Ms. Collins. In that, does Mr. Singh risk interfering with the Bank of Canada's mandate by the policies aside that you've laid out? He is still criticizing its decisions when it comes to the benchmark rate.
I think looking at what the Bank of Canada decides to do and speaking out in terms of ensuring that we support Canadians in a time where they are struggling, there's nothing wrong with that. We're not saying for the government to intervene, to overstep, or to politicize the Bank of Canada. What we're really saying is that Canadians are struggling right now, and corporate profits are rising at twice the rate of inflation. This is a problem. And when you have a government and the opposition, the Conservative opposition, completely ignoring one incredibly important role, one incredibly important reason that inflation is happening. This is a problem, and Canadians can see that it's a problem. They want their government to take action, and it's why we want to ensure that there is a probe, an investigation, inquiry into price gouging, into grocery store price fixing, if that's happening. And it's also why we're asking the government to take real action with a windfall profits tax, with solutions. And remember,
let me jump in. I'm sorry, just quickly running down. But Mr. Hallan, I'm going to get you to jump in because your leader has questioned the bank's past decisions as well. What's your thought on the matter about addressing the bank, whether or not that intervenes with its mandate?
Well, it's simple to see that the bank has not kept up with its own mandate. I mean, their mandate is simple: keep inflation below 2%. And what we've seen is the Bank of Canada act like an ATM machine that let Justin Trudeau print and borrow as much money as he would have liked. And now Canadians are suffering for that. We saw during the pandemic, there was almost $200 billion that was non-pandemic related spending. And what did that do? It drove up the cost of everything. And the Bank of Canada is having to raise its interest rates because of just inflation. Again, the symptom is the rates going up, but the real problem is just inflation. The more Justin Trudeau continues to borrow on the backs of Canadians, the more everything becomes more and more expensive for people. And Canadians are getting pushed more and more into food banks that we're seeing. The usage for our homeless shelters are going up as well. People are starting to skip meals because of this. This is all on Justin Trudeau and the bad policies, and it's too bad the NDP continues to prop up the Liberal government.
Okay, last word to you, Mr. Sorbara. You got 1 minute left. What do you make of this discussion, considering the concerns being raised by both opposition members to government policy and not helping where they think the government should be?
Thank you, Michael. First of all, it's completely irresponsible for the opposition leader to call for the firing of the Bank of Canada governor, which he has. It's completely irresponsible to politicize the Bank of Canada in any manner. They've been independent in our country's history. They have a job to do. They have the tools that they need, and they'll continue to do that. And we should hold them in a high degree of respect. We should also help Canadians, though. I know when we go to the grocery store, we see the price of lettuce, we see the price of food items, energy. We know that there's a global phenomenon of inflation. Our government is acting. We are helping Canadians. And we also remember during COVID, we had the backs of Canadians and we had to assist them, and we assisted our economy. We came roaring back versus other countries, and our economy is strong. Unemployment is very low. At the same time, we're dealing with global phenomenon of inflation. We'll let the Bank of Canada do what it needs to do. At the same time, we will be fiscally good managers. We will have targeted investments to help those Canadians that are the most vulnerable and being impacted by inflation, and we'll be there every day and every step of the way.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Never enough time to have these discussions, but really appreciate the three of you showing up today. Francesco Sorbara, Jasraj Hallan, and Laurel Collins, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.